Most people think silence online means nothing is happening, but that assumption is wrong. In a world where nearly every moment is documented, posted, filtered, and shared, some people choose to remain completely invisible. They scroll, they watch, they understand, but they don't post. No updates, no captions, no explanations. And the question people quietly ask is always the same. Why? Why would someone stay unseen in a culture that rewards visibility? It's easy to label them as shy, detached, or antisocial. But that explanation barely scratches the surface, because silence online isn't always absence. Sometimes it's intention. Sometimes it's control. Sometimes it's a quiet refusal to turn life into performance. Social media didn't just change how we communicate. It changed how we define ourselves. Visibility became proof of existence. Expression became currency. And approval became measurement. But people who don't post often step outside that system entirely. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they don't want their identity shaped by reaction. Psychologically, this is significant. Studies show that people who post less frequently often score higher in introspection, emotional self-regulation, and internal validation. Their sense of worth doesn't rely on being mirrored back to them. They aren't trying to convince the world who they are. They're trying to understand it privately. Most online behavior is identity construction. Every post quietly asks, "Do you see me? Do I matter?" But when someone stops posting, something shifts internally. Life stops being edited. Moments stop being rehearsed. Experience becomes personal again instead of consumable. For many, silence online is a response to emotional fatigue. They once shared everything until sharing began to feel hollow. Each post carried pressure. Each moment had to be better than the last. Life became a performance loop, so they stepped back, quietly, without announcement. And what looked like disappearance was actually self-preservation. Not posting doesn't mean not feeling. Often, it means feeling deeply. There's a psychological concept called psychological ownership, the sense that something belongs fully to you. When a moment is posted, that ownership shifts. It becomes open to judgment, distortion, and interpretation. People who stay silent often protect that ownership fiercely. They keep their experiences untouched. And this choice can feel liberating. Because once you stop broadcasting, you start noticing how conditioned the urge to share really is. You laugh without thinking of proof. You succeed without framing it. You grieve without explanation. You live without witnesses. But silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being reduced. Fear of being ignored. Social media creates constant self-presentational pressure, the sense of being observed even when no one is watching. For some, that pressure becomes exhausting. So they retreat, not because they don't want connection, but because they want real connection. Ironically, many of the quietest people online have the loudest internal worlds. Their silence isn't emptiness. It's containment. They process instead of projecting. They observe instead of reacting. Philosophically, choosing invisibility in a visibility-obsessed culture is a form of self-definition. It's saying, I exist beyond your perception. Some transformations are meant to happen without applause. Growth, grief, identity. These things often form best in private. And here's the paradox. Social media promises connection, but often delivers comparison. When someone stops posting, they stop chasing digital closeness and start noticing real ones. Who checks in without updates? Who remembers without reminders? Those connections feel heavier, warmer, more grounded. People who don't post often have strong identity security. They know who they are even when no one is watching. That isn't arrogance. It's peace. They don't need an audience to validate their existence. Neurologically, resisting social media isn't passive. It's disciplined. Likes trigger dopamine. Validation becomes addictive. Choosing not to engage requires self-awareness. People who disengage often develop a stronger internal locus of control. Their worth comes from inside, not from response. Research shows that stepping away from posting can increase emotional stability and life satisfaction. When identity stops being reflected back constantly, it solidifies. Life becomes lived instead of curated. But silence can also come from exhaustion. From a quiet toll of watching everyone's highlight reel while carrying unseen weight. From comparing even when you try not to. From feeling drained by constant exposure. Some people leave not out of bitterness, but protection. We've confused visibility with value, but meaning doesn't require witnesses. Some of the most defining moments of your life will happen without an audience. And maybe that's what those who don't post understand best. Privacy isn't loneliness. It's intimacy with yourself. When you stop broadcasting, you start hearing your own voice again, your real desires, your unspoken fears, your internal compass. There may be moments of doubt, moments where silence feels like falling behind. But over time, something settles. Your worth doesn't disappear when no one is watching. It remains steady, quiet, intact. Real confidence isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It exists comfortably without proof. The moments that shape you rarely make it online. Growth, heartbreak, healing, quiet victories. They live in memory, not media. And that may be enough. Authentic self-expression isn't about exposure. It's about congruence, alignment between who you are inside and how you live. In a world that rewards fragments, staying whole is an act of resistance. People who live quietly often feel life most intensely. They notice what others miss. They are present, and presence is rare. Their silence isn't emptiness. It's depth. So when you notice someone who never posts, don't assume they're hiding. Maybe they're just living. Maybe they remember what the noise made us forget. That being unseen isn't the same as being insignificant. That being quiet isn't the same as being empty. And that sometimes the most honest expression of who you are is silence.